Hey, hi there, and welcome to another episode of Sit and Spin with me, your host Joe. With me as always, my faithful companion, Norm the Drowsy Dog. And why yes, that is a fine Empire Records t-shirt I'm sporting today. Good reason for that one too. A band we're talking about today appeared on the soundtrack to this movie, and it was only a couple years after the soundtrack came out that the band released their last studio record all the way back in 1997. That's right, it's been 16 years since these guys have had a new record out. And they are back on the scene, and I, for one, could not be happier. Of course, we're talking about Toad The Wet Sprocket, and their new album, New Constellation, just came out last week. Toad, of course, got their name from a Monty Python sketch, and first appeared on the scene back in California in 1986. Four band members: Glenn Phillips on lead vocals and guitars and keyboards, Todd Nichols on lead guitar, Dean Dining on bass and keyboards, and Randy Gallus on drums. Released their first album back in 1988 called Bread and Circus, which got picked up by Columbia Records and signed to a major label and reissued in 1989. They followed that up in 1990 with the album Pale, which did a little bit better. And then in 1991, they had their first big commercial breakthrough success with their album Fear and the songs All I Want and Walk on the Ocean. And because that album did a bit better, they spent a little bit more time touring out on the road and stuff. And so it wouldn't be until 1994 before they would come back to the follow-up to that, and the album called Dulcinea. That, of course, also did really well with the songs Fall Down and Something's Always Wrong. And again, they took a little bit more time off touring and promoting that record. And up until this point, Toad had pretty much operated as an indie band still would, meaning that they self-financed all their own recordings and would basically write, work on the record, record it, and then come together with a full album and turn it into the record label, who would essentially then just promote it and give them a little money for touring and whatnot. And that was a little situation that worked pretty well for them up until that point. And when it came time to record their next record, which was 1997's Coil, all of a sudden they decided, hey, let's take that record to Company Advance for a change and see if it makes any difference in the recording. Maybe it'll be a little bit better. It turned out to be not such a great idea, because then all of a sudden the record company, who before had just let them do what they wanted, all of a sudden they were very interested in the production and the making of the record. And they were like, oh, we don't hear a single here, we want more songs like this isn't working for us. And it so soured the band on the whole being a band and dealing with a major record label that they basically broke up a year later in 98. And they kind of went their separate ways and stayed apart for the better part of a decade or so. Lead singer Glenn Phillips went on to a little bit of a solo career, released a few albums. In 2001, some of the band members reunited to form a new band called Lapdog, and released an album and I believe an EP or so, but didn't do anything nearly as well as Toad The Wet Sprocket. Didn't have kind of the same magic. And they stayed apart. It wasn't until 2009 that the band reunited, kind of got back together and started doing a few shows here or there. People seemed to dig it. They were having a good time, so they would continue further doing more shows and decided, let's make a new record. So earlier this year, the band announced a Kickstarter campaign to finance their new album because they kind of wanted to keep it all in-house again. They decided, the majors aren't where it's at. Let's go back to the old way of doing things. So they raised $250,000 through their Kickstarter campaign. They raised something like $50,000, I think, in a single day. It may have been a weekend or something like that. But gave them the money, the opportunity to do the record the way they wanted to do, so they made New Constellation. And as part of the Kickstarter campaign, fans who contributed to that got a bunch of special different packages they could get. But even though this record just came out last week, there's been an advanced digital copy to anybody who contributed to that, which has 4 extra tracks that aren't on this record. But let me tell you, this whole record is absolutely dynamite. If you are a Toad fan, man, this is the album you've been waiting for a long, long time. And much like we were talking about with Mazzy Star a few weeks back, it's like these guys never went away. It's like they just picked right up where they left off with Coil back in 97, and it's even better than that. This is probably the finest record of their career. I know that's hefty praise, but absolutely true, man. There is not a bad song on this album. I'd be hard-pressed to pick favorites, but I'd probably start with a song that just started now, which is called The Moment. Quite like I'll Bet On You, which is also another classic Toad-sounding song. California Wasted, which was the song that kicked off this episode. The title track. I'm also a big fan of the moody ballad, The Eye. But really, awesome, awesome record. This whole thing is dynamite. Norm would give it 4 paws up if he could talk, but he can't, so there you go. But Toad The Wet Sprocket, New Constellation, long time coming, well overdue, absolutely awesome. If you are a Toad fan, you're going to love it. If you don't know anything about the band, a great jumping on point, and then you can go back and dig out the rest of their catalog. But absolutely awesome stuff. So glad they're back. Thanks for tuning into the show. Thanks from Norm. Hopefully you are checking out my good friend Scott over at Righteous Vinyl, and if you are a vinyl fan, there will be a vinyl release of this album, but there's kind of been a delay in getting it made, much as there is with a lot of new vinyl these days. But it will be out there, and we will catch you next time on the next episode of Sit and Spin. See you then.